Water Diary, brought to you by the Department of Water and Sanitation.
South Africans have the privilege of turning the tap and having access to water. But do we appreciate the delivery and production of water and the fact that drinking water in South Africa is of a high standard and the safest in the world? Welcome to the Water Diary, right in SABC1, Mzansi for sure. The show is brought to you by the Department of Water and Sanitation and SABC Education. On today's show, we'll take a look at the journey of water.
Our journey of water starts at the Zekerbosch Rand Water Facility. Here, the executive manager of Zekerbosch, Mr. Singo, shares how we source our water and purify it.
Welcome to the Water Diary, Mr. Singo. Can you please share with us the journey of water, where we source it from?
Thank you, ma'am. In South Africa, we source water from two places. One, it is from our own rivers. In the system that we are at that supplies rainwater, it is the Vaal River system. Vaal River system gets water from all sort of small rivers from Mpumalanga coming down to the Vaal, ultimately supplying the Vaal Dam. That's the one source. However, because South Africa is water scarce, we then, as a relationship between South Africa and Lesotho, we are now buying water as well from the Lesotho Highlands, which is a scheme that is a joint project between South African Department of Water and Sanitation and Lesotho government. So majority of water that comes into Vaal Dam actually comes from Lesotho Highlands.
Please tell us about the water purification process.
The water treatment process, it's in particular rainwater's process, is subdivided into modules. The first part is the abstraction of water, which is the sourcing of water from the dam itself, transportation thereof into rainwater. From there, because that water has gone through farms, rivers and all these sorts of things, people throwing in debris into the rivers. Rainwater, then the first part of it is screening of your solids, your trees, animals that may have jumped into the stream itself. That screen actually removes those before we subject that into treatment. After that, then our water then proceeds to what we call a flocculator. The flocculator, the first process starts, which is called coagulation. Coagulation in simple form is the addition of chemicals into the water, but at a very high energy. So you want that chemical to mix with the water. The intention being that water should then change, we call it destabilization. It then changes the charge of your solids that still remained in the water. Immediately after the addition of that chemical, we then allow water to proceed in the spiral flocculator. At the center of the flocculator, the energy is high, but as it progresses, then the energy reduces. At that point, we want to then ensure that all those particles that were attracting each other as a result of chemicals that were added, those particles will then gain weight. This is the one part where weight is not a problem. They gain weight and then attract each other. The intention is that they should then sink, go and rest right at the bottom of the flocculator. But because there's still enough energy, your water then still proceeds from the flocculator to the sedimentation tank. At the sedimentation tank, that's where we want the floc that is strong, the floc that has now attached, all your particles have now come together and are now heavier particles. This is where we want them to settle. They don't settle at the flocculator, they then settle at the sedimentation tank. The sedimentation tank, which is what is behind us, the speed of the flow is now drastically reduced. Nothing happens there. The only thing that happens is the water comes in at a very reduced speed. Your heavy particles then start settling right at the bottom of the sedimentation tank. Your clean water will then be on top by way of displacement. clean water will then proceed into the launders, solids resting at the bottom. We then pump the solids from the bottom using the dislodging bridges that you are seeing, the blue units that you are seeing. Pump sludge from the bottom, and your clean water floats on the surface. That clean water then is collected in the launders.
After the process of treating water, how does it get to our taps?
We then pump our water from the treatment plants to all the destinations, right up to Rustenburg, up to Northwest, through Joburg, right up to Mpumalanga and the Free State. So it is pumping. We've got pipelines laid between treatment plants and Joburg, treatment plants and Ekurhuleni, and all these destinations. There are huge pumps, some of them between 900 millimeters right up to 3 meters of pipeline in terms of diameter laid in there. What becomes important are the pumps that we use to pump that water to those destinations. Of course, we can't pump right up directly from here right up to Rustenburg. We pump from here to Joburg, and we've got booster stations, 4 main booster stations, 1 Mapleton, Palmit, Eikenhof, and Swartkopis. Those then pump right up to Mpumalanga, right up to Northwest. So we've got booster stations all over the supply environment.
So what is the standard of drinking water in South Africa compared to other parts of the world?
The standard of drinking water in South Africa is fairly comparable with international standards. In South Africa, we use SANS 241 for drinking water that measures all the 4 parameters plus many other parameters. And SANS 241 was based on World Health Organization's standard for drinking water. And therefore, the basis of our standard is comparable to international. If you look at all the big metros, the urban areas, we comply exactly at the level of World Health Organization. Of course, your rural areas and possibly small municipalities, there's still room for improvement. But by and large, South African water is comparable with many other international waters.
The Water Diary. The Water Diary.
Welcome back to the Water Diary, right on SABC1, Mzansi for sure. Feel free to interact with us on social media. Our handles are on the screen. Now, water is constantly being tested for compliance prior to sending it out to our municipalities. Now, let's have a chat with Professor Dupree.
The Rand Water Analytical Services is a division where scientists work tirelessly to make sure our water is clean and bacteria-free. Mpoputini spends time with Professor Dupree to find out more about the water purification process.
Welcome, Prof. Dupree, and thank you so much for joining us on the Water Diary. We know that water is constantly being monitored and tested. Now, do you only test water that is being treated for drinking water?
The short answer would be no, but maybe to elaborate and explain a little bit more, the philosophy at Rand Water is to actually monitor and treat and test water from source to tap. To explain that a little bit more in detail, we get our source water from the Vaal Dam, so we will monitor, which is our source, so we will monitor the Vaal Dam as well as the tributaries, or in other words, the rivers that flow into the Vaal Dam. We will test the water as we abstract it to the different plants, the one at Suikerbos, the one at Vereniging. We will monitor and test during the treatment process, and then finally we will test as the water is leaving the plants and in the distribution network, and finally at your drinking water tap. We actually go the extra mile and in some cases also monitor the effluent that's discharged, for example, from wastewater treatment works.
Now, why is this data constantly being updated?
It's important to test and to continuously test. If you take again from a treatment perspective, if you take a simple variable like algae in your source water, algae, the species plus the concentration change with seasons. So you have to know what the concentrations are in order for you to actually adapt your treatment processes. So it's important to monitor for algae, for turbidity and all the other variables constantly. Another aspect is we have to monitor frequently and in some cases constantly to make sure that the water that's produced and leaving the plant actually poses no health risk to the actual consumer. And finally, which is a very important aspect, all the drinking water that we produce must comply to the national standard of South Africa, which is called SANS 241. And in that standard, we are legally forced to monitor certain variables as well as at a specific frequency. So it's the legal compliance, but also to make sure that the people who's drinking our water is safe.
Now, what are the various tests done in laboratories and what are they looking for?
If you look at broadly, the tests can be grouped in chemical analysis and biological analysis. If I can explain that a little bit more in detail, if you look at the chemical analysis, it can be inorganic or organic. Inorganic is variables like pH, turbidity and metals in the water. If you look at organic substances, that can be variables like pesticides in water, or it can be taste and odor compounds, which will not nice for the consumer actually to smell or to taste. And then, very importantly, we also do biological monitoring, and a big part of that is microbiological monitoring. For example, we will monitor for E. coli, which is an indicator organism for fecal pollution. So that's important. Other important variable from a microbiological point of view can be cholera. We monitor for Vibrio cholera, so you don't detect that. We monitor for viruses in water or parazoans. So it's all these variables that is an indication that the water is polluted or that can directly cause illness. The other part is like the algae, which I said, they produce toxins and taste and odor problems, so we monitor the algae plus the taste and odor compounds, and they must comply to certain guidelines which we are legally enforced. So that's broadly the different aspects, what we look for. So it's directly linked to legal compliance, make sure that the people are safe, and in Rand Water's case, we go the extra mile. We just don't monitor what we have to in SANS 241, the legal compliance. We add additional variables which we think is important, and there we benchmark ourselves and compare ourselves with like the World Health Organization. What do they think is important? So that's how we select, and that's what we monitor.
What qualification does one need in order to become a water quality scientist?
If you take, for example, I'm going to use our analytical services facility as an example. You will have staff members that do the analysis on the bench. They will have qualifications like a national diploma or a BSc degree in either chemistry or biotechnology. But you will find that if you do assessment currently, that most of these staff members will have a second tertiary education. If you want to be a scientist, the entry level would be a BSc or BSc honours preferably. But currently, if you look at our scientists, what we have highly skilled ones. They usually have master's degree or a PhD in their specific fields with experience ranging from 5 to 15 years in that field. So if you look at, it's a long career, and you must always try to improve your skills.
Now, what advice do you have for young people who want to pursue a career as a water scientist?
I think the first thing, you must sit down and you must think, do I have a passion for this? Do I really have a passion for science, number one? Or do I want to be a lawyer? Okay, you can be a lawyer in the environmental field, but if you really want to work in the water industry for purification and testing, you must have a passion. And then you must also have an underlying desire to work in a field that will have an impact on everybody's life. All the people on earth need some water, and good purified drinking water. But it's also the animals, it's also the environment that needs water. So that's the first sort of thing. You must have the passion to do that. Then the next thing is to select the correct subjects at school. And I think that's where sometimes people don't get the correct advice. Oh, science is difficult. I won't pass maths. But if you can, you must just go, and if you have that objective of working the water field, you must go and do the science so that you can do a tertiary education, be accepted for that. And I see a lot of students want to come in the water field, but you ask them, what is your subjects? Then the subjects aren't aligned in that. And maybe you must have the self-belief, maybe like Obama said, yes, we can. You can change that phrase and say, yes, I can. It's simple.
Maths and science are crucial subjects to pursue a career as a water scientist. For more details about Rand Water Academy programs, here are the contact details on your screen. Also, log on to their website www.randwater.co.za. The Water Diary.
Welcome back to the Water Diary, right on SABC1, Mzansi for sure. Today we're taking a look at the journey of water. We're at Joburg Water to find out how water gets delivered to our taps.
Our last stop on our journey of water is at Joburg Water.
Today we interview the Chief Operations Officer from Joburg Water on their delivery of water to Joburg residents. Let's welcome Mr. Mokwebo.
Thank you.
Please tell us about the role of water and how clean water arrives at our homes.
Johannesburg Water is a municipal-owned entity. It's owned by the City of Johannesburg, and its mandate is the supply of water and sanitation services to the residents of the city. Basically, we supply on a daily basis about 1,560 megaliters to the city, and we do this through our network of water pipes. And this network of water pipe, we're talking about 11,900 kilometers of water pipes, and with 35 pump stations, as well as about 600 pressure reducing valves. I'm sure you'll understand why we have pressure reducing valves, because of the topography of the city. And we make sure that on a daily basis, once we receive this water from our bulk supplier, which is Rand Water, we have various sampling points within the entire system, and we take about 500 samples per month, and we take this sample to our SANAS accredited laboratory for analysis, and so that we make sure that the quality complies to SANS 241, which is the standard which governs the supply of potable water.
One only thinks of clean water we have coming into our homes, but what happens to our wastewater after it leaves our homes?
Yes, we as I've indicated, our mandate also is the provision of sanitation services to the city. That involves also the collection of the wastewater from the residents and businesses within the city. And we do that through our sewer reticulation network, which is about 11,800 kilometers. And that sewer that we collect, we take it to our 6 wastewater treatment works, which is within the city of Johannesburg. And these 6 wastewater treatment works has a total combined capacity of about 1,050 megaliters. And on daily basis, we collect 973 megaliters that we clean at our 6 wastewater treatment works.
Now, there must be a lot of pipes pumping water to and from our residential areas. How do you monitor leakages?
We've got various monitoring systems. The first one that I should indicate to you is all our bulk infrastructure that I've indicated. That is the reservoirs, the pump stations. They are all linked to our SCADA system. Basically, the SCADA system is what we use to monitor all our infrastructure, and we monitor it from our head office. In other words, if there is anything that probably is of concern in our system, we're able to pick it up from that SCADA system. Because the main aim of that SCADA system is to monitor the performance of our system. And we have also embarked on an initiative whereby we are currently now also linking all our 600 pressure reducing valves that I've indicated to you to the SCADA system. Currently we have linked about 50 of them, and we anticipate that by June 2017 we'll have linked all of them. And that helps us to be able to monitor the performance of our system and also detect if there's any problems that needs to be attended to. But moreover, we also have our leak detection team. The 11,900 kilometer of water network running throughout the entire city. We make sure that on annual basis, 10,000 of it basically have been surveyed by our leak detection team. These are the teams that walk street by street, making sure that they check the entire system as to say, is there anything of concern that needs to be attended? And through that, we are able to pick up things that we need to attend to. But also, the important thing also is that any failure of that happen in our system also, we also rely on the residents or community of the city to report those things so that we can be able to attend to them.
If you see any leaks in and around your area, please call our number on the screen, 0800 200 200. Let's save water.
In closing, what message do you have for our residents on saving water?
I think that there are many things that residents can do to save water. Firstly, nowadays there are dual flush system in terms of the toilet system that we encourage residents to have that. One also need to look at the shower head that uses less water. One also can look at simple thing like when you brush your teeth. Please do not leave your tap running. There are many water-saving tips. Most of them, we have them in our website. Viewers need to log in and they'll be able to see what we encourage people to do and not to do, both indoor as well as outdoor.
Mr. Mugobo, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
This is our water-saving tip for the week. Fix leaking taps in your house and in your workplace. Leaking taps waste a lot of water. This is our water-saving tip of the week. Don't forget to get in touch with the Department of Water and Sanitation. Our details are on the screen.
I've learned so much about the journey of water, and a big thank you to Rand Water for assisting us. This is how we wrap up the show. Thank you so much for joining us right here on the Water Diary. Remember, #SaveWater. Let's do it again next week, same time, same place. Khona la ku SABC 1 Mzansi for sure. Nake Mpwaputhini.
The Water Diary, brought to you by the Department of Water and Sanitation.